Hi, my name is Sandra Ochola. I am a lawyer, an author, and a founder who has spent more than a decade providing visionary leadership to organizations and empowering mentorship to individuals. Having worked in senior leadership roles in policy, governance, and strategic communication, I realized that the secret to active citizenship lies in creating a culture of empowered people who can positively contribute to their communities. Join me on this channel as we journey together in creating that community of empowered citizens by engaging in conversations that genuinely inspire societal transformation. The latest projections from the International Monetary Fund, or the IMF as you know it, indicates that Kenya is on track to becoming East Africa's largest economy by 2025. And market analysts have or are attributing this to Kenya's resilient macroeconomy, which has been boosted partly by growth in our manufacturing and agricultural sectors. Other reasons that have been given include the record high diaspora remittances, which at the time of making this video stood at 640 billion Kenya shillings. The government and national labor unions have affirmed that these achievements would not have been possible without the contribution of workers within Kenya's 23 million labor force. As is tradition, on May 1st this year, which is just a couple of days ago, Kenyans gathered at Uhuru Park to observe the 60th Labor Day celebrations as a way to celebrate our workers and mark another milestone in the promotion of workers' rights in Kenya. The event, as always, was graced by local and diplomatic dignitaries, including His Excellency President William Ruto, various international partners and diplomats. We had cabinet secretaries in attendance, as well as the representatives of workers across the country. And as it is with previous celebrations, this event highlighted some of the challenges and the successes that have characterized Kenya's labor sector. And I believe that knowledge of these challenges and successes is especially important for any worker who's already in the sector, and any young person who is yet to graduate, is looking for a job, or is just getting into the labor force, as well as young professionals who are already within the labor sector and are interested in getting information and having knowledge of the social, political, and even the economic dynamics within Kenya's labor sector. And so this next part is going to look at the challenges that are affecting the labor force and those that are affecting the workers at a legal, institutional, and national level. And the first challenge that's evident for many young people is a high unemployment rate. The Federation of Kenya Employers, the FKE, gave a report most recently indicating that the overall unemployment in Kenya is at 12.7%. And our youth between the ages of 15 to 34 are most affected and report the highest unemployment rate at 67%. In fact, an excerpt from the report says that over 1 million young people are getting into the labor market annually without any skills. Some have either dropped out of school or have completed school but have not enrolled into any college. So that paints a grim picture for young people, especially those who are currently in our education institutions, depending on which sector they'd like to focus on. The general feel or the reality on the ground is that jobs are very scarce and young people are not getting employed or not getting as many opportunities as they would want to. The second challenge that our workers are facing are the heavy taxes, so that despite the great progress that is being made at the macro level, Kenyan workers are still struggling under the weight of the heavy taxes that have been imposed on them by the government. And this includes statutory deductions on the gross pay that are now going towards the Affordable Housing Program, Taifa Care or SHA, and most recently the National Social Security Fund. Tied to this is the question of the third salary rule, which provides that employees should retain at least 1/3 of their basic salary after all deductions. And this is contained in our Employment Act and is meant to ensure that workers are able to take home enough to cater for their bills and to take care of their families. Unfortunately, February 2025 report by the Auditor General of Kenya shows that even within the government, there are about 47,300 government employees who are taking home less than 1/3 of their salaries. So this then places the government itself in breach of the Employment Act. And so you can only imagine what is happening within the private sector, because then you have more and more people looking for jobs, young people looking for jobs. You get the job and you start earning your salary, but then there are heavy taxes and then your take home is affected. You're not able to pay your bills as comfortably as you'd want to. Tied to the heavy taxes and the 1/3 salary rule, you have issues of inflation, where commodity prices seem to be increasing as the workers' purchasing power decreases. And you've had this in say social media or even in day-to-day conversations, the price of milk, the price of unga, the cost of accommodation, and most people can attest to the fact that there are certain things that have become too expensive for them to bear as the years go by. The other challenge that workers talk about are the employee-employer relations. And you have many employers who are saying that they are bearing the brunt of unpredictable tax policies. And so most of them feel that they're not able to plan ahead. It's getting difficult for them to plan because they do not know which tax is going to be imposed on them next year, or which tax is going to be imposed 5 years from now, to enable them to plan internally and with their resources and with their employees. And also because of the tough business environment, most of them are saying so. You have a good number of employees who are laying off, a good number of employers who are laying off their employees. Some are freezing employment for a period of time as they sort themselves out. You have some of them outsourcing labor to ensure that they're able to afford to pay their employees, while others are just closing down their businesses altogether, or relocating to other countries. And of course, then this contributes to the high unemployment rates, because for as long as we are not attracting enough foreign investment, we are not attracting enough companies to come and set up and actually have viable and long-term businesses within our country, then that means then that we are not able to create employment opportunities for our young people. The next challenge is the export of labor, which has been dubbed the Kazi Maju program. And this has been an attempt by the government and even the players within the private sector to create job opportunities for Kenyan citizens in the diaspora. And this has had mixed results. For most people who are against it, they say that this is a temporary measure towards resolving the youth unemployment situation, because not all youth desire or are able to travel and go work abroad. And some people also say that with the advent of AI and other technological developments, there are certain skill sets that may not be marketable in the long run. So if there's a young person, most of them are taking what they can get, and they are short-term contracts, as opposed to a job environment that someone can say, I have a 5-year, 10-year contract or security or tenure. There's also the issue of the minimum wage. Now, Kenya's minimum wage has risen to 15,201 at the time of making this video, and that's about 94 Kenya shillings per hour. And this is a huge rise from the 1,700 per month that workers used to earn in 1994. The minimum wage is intended to cushion workers and to promote fair pay practices within the workplace. But there are employers who are finding it difficult to implement, given the issues of salaries and taxation and inflation that we've just talked about. To stress this point, you could look at yourself as both an employer and an employee. Say you're working for the government or the private sector and you're earning about 100,000. Kenya shillings. At the end of the month, when you're getting your salary, the deductions have been made, the affordable housing, the SHA, the NSSF, and your take home obviously reduces. Now, let's assume you have about 60,000 left. Now, out of this 60,000 is what you're supposed to use for your bills, you're supposed to use for your food, to take care of your family, to take care of yourself. But then the law stipulates, this minimum wage law stipulates that if you have a house help, if you have a security guard, if you have a farmhand back at home, then as an employer, you are required to pay your employees the minimum wage of 15,000 shillings. And this is where the contention is, and you have employers saying that they're not able to implement this because their take home is already so little, and high taxes and inflation issues. And so you find most of those they employ, or most employees, especially in the informal sector, they take what they can get. A house manager, for instance, will come and say, if I'm looking for work, what can you give me 5,000 shillings? And they're going to accept it because most of them do not have a way out. A union representative will tell them that they are able to sue, but most of them do not wish to sue because, again, the legal process for them is costly. Even if they get legal representation, they need to pay a lawyer, they need to pay court fees, and then it takes about 2 to 3 years for their cases to be heard. So oftentimes it becomes a moral issue for the employer for them to be able to meet the minimum wage requirements for their employees at whatever level. The next challenge that has been highlighted is the status of union leadership, and this speaks directly to the management of KOTU, which is a central organization of trade unions in Kenya. The Secretary General, Francis Atwoli, has been in office for 24 years. And of course, this has raised issues as to whether time is nigh for a change of guard within the union. And again, these calls for new leadership have been heightened by allegations of his politicization of the union, and for him working with successive governments to make decisions and also pass policies that are detrimental to workers. For some of them, they feel that KOTU is not looking into their welfare as adequately as they would want because of the leadership and political issues that continue to bedevil the union itself.
Your Excellency, we are celebrating also our 60th anniversary. We have been around for 60 years. And in these 60 years, Your Excellency, I have been around as the leader of labor movement in this country for 24 years. And recently, Your Excellency, when we were with you in Nyanza, I did mention that you are my last president for me to serve. I have served all presidents of the Republic of Kenya. And I also assured shop stewards recently that as you see me here, I'm contemplating to exit. But then, because we have democracy and there are people who are watching what we are doing, whether we are responsive to workers' needs or not, a section of my executive board met and gave another resolution, and they are confident in me. But I want to assure them, as much as we have heard our song, which says our solidarity is forever, we call ourselves brothers and sisters. This does not mean that as we enter into the new year, that it will be only Atwoli who can be able to lead labor movement. Our organization is democratic. We are free and independent.
The last challenge relates to abuse and sexual harassment in the workplace, and this is tied to the numerous complaints from vulnerable workers some of who have reported that they are being sexually harassed in the workplace or are facing varied forms of abuse from their employers, and most of them without the right knowledge, without the right support, that they do not know where to go to seek help. To recap on the challenges we've just talked about, first is the high unemployment rate. Second are the high taxes imposed on workers, and for the employers, what they call the unpredictable tax policies. The third is their third salary rule, which is in contravention of the Employment Act. And fourth, you have the inflation rate, which is increasing commodity prices. Employee-employer relations, requiring employers to either lay off their employees, to freeze employment, outsource labor, or to close down their operations. You also have the Kazi Majuu program and its attendant challenges. We have the question of minimum wage and how it can be implemented, or how it should be implemented. And of course, the last one is the status of trade unions and whether the current leadership is attuned to the needs of its workers. And this then leads us to part 3 on the existing or proposed policies, as well as the promises that are being made by the decision makers to address some of these challenges that we've identified just now.